Okay, I'm going to show you how to utilize your Google Sheets in order to make scatter plots and find your least squares regression line and correlation coefficient. So first off, if you used Google Forms to create data, Google Forms will actually create the scatter plot for you. If you collected your data by hand, you would have manually input this. But if you're using Google Forms, all you have to do is go to responses. So typically you see your questions here. I'll go to responses, and then you see this little Excel green looking button. Click on that and your responses will come up. Create a new spreadsheet, hit create, and your responses will come up. So I haven't actually asked anybody questions, but for the sake of data, however many questions you will have that many columns. So if you asked 5 questions, you should have 5 columns of data. If you asked 10 questions, you'll have 10 columns of data. Okay, so for your project, is there a correlation between, so let's say number of shoes owned and age. So if I want to answer those questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the 2 columns that I want. So if I want the first 2, I'm going to highlight the first 2. I'm going to insert, chart, and notice Scatterplot pops up right away. If it doesn't on chart type, you can click Scatterplot. And again, there's a variety of charts here, but for your Is There a Correlation project, we're doing scatterplots. And notice if you title the first cell in the column, it will actually title the axes for you. This is number of shoes and this is age. Again, right here it says x-axis. You can change the title if needed. You can click on this and change, add labels. You can change it if needed. If you want to switch the x and the y, you can switch the x and a y. If you want to create your own labels, you can unclick these if you don't like what the first cell title is, but much easier if you title the first cell. Next, go to customize. Notice you can customize a lot of different things. Chart style, you can add color if you want, change it however you want, but you can change the background color if you want. Have fun with whatever you want your color to be. You can change your chart and axis titles right here. Again, if you don't like age versus number of shoes. If you click on series, this is what is going to actually give you your least squares regression line. Under customize series, you can click trend line. And notice it will put in a least squares regression line. And for our intents and purposes, yes, we're going to do linear. And also, where it says label, actually put use equation. Notice it actually gives you the exact linear equation that matches those data points. Then if you click the show R squared, it will also show you the R squared, the coefficient of determination. And you can square root that to actually find your R value, which is needed for your project, the correlation coefficient. Okay, so all of that can be done through Google Sheets. And again, you can click on some of these other things if you want to customize in detail. Those should be the main ones. This gets you your line, and you can square root to get your R value. Okay, so when you're done with this graph, again, you can click the 3 arrows to the right. You can copy chart. And since for your project, you're more than likely going to be using Google Slides. Again, you can open up your Google Slides. Create a new one. Make sure to have your title. Is there a correlation? Again, click new slide. And again, you can paste your graph in. Okay, so make sure for each data value, you need your graph. And again, you need the other things on the rubric. First, initial hypothesis, and make your initial hypothesis before you even actually collect your data. Once you decide on your questions, go ahead and make those initial hypotheses, so that way you're not skewing your answers from once you find your data. but that's how you can copy the chart in. And again, you can add everything else you need added to your slides. Make sure that you hyperlink your spreadsheet of data. So if you're using Google Forms, again, Google Forms will populate the spreadsheet. Again, if you want to collect your data by hand, you're going to be manually entering this data, which is fine. But make sure to hyperlink it. So what does that mean? That means you come up to the top, you're going to highlight the URL, Control Copy, Control C, go to your Google Slides, and I'd probably do it on your first slide or your ending slide. And you can do Insert Link. Insert link. And you can paste your URL, and what I would say is I'd call it probably data. So that way, when you're presenting your project, all you have to do is click on your data sheet. Your data sheet will populate up, okay? So that's how you create a scatter plot. Let's say we don't actually want these first two columns, okay? Let's say we want column A and column C. Highlight column A, Control, hit column C. Notice now I have A and C, and again, you can do the same thing. I want to insert chart. And notice, again, it defaults to Scatterplot here. If it doesn't change it, and notice it's now graphing number of shoes and height. So one more time, again, in order to get the least squares regression line, you go to Customize, go to Series, go to Trend Line. For our purposes, we're going to do linear. Now, just statistics in general, let's say that R squared, that R isn't very high, or from the scatter plot, we're not looking at a line. Maybe we're looking at exponential growth or decay. You could click on exponential. It will give you the exponential equation, logarithm, polynomial, so forth. So if you find a higher correlation, if you want to tell me that, that's fine. For our purposes, we'll do linear. Again, where it says label, you're going to put use equation. It gives you your y hat. Make sure to label it y hat in your project, and click on R squared. So you can square root that to find your R value. And again, you can click on the other customization features in order to play around with the color and whatnot. That's fine. And again, to copy your three dots, you can put copy chart, paste it into your Google Slides. Okay. So an example of some good quality projects. Let me pull up some good quality projects for you, just to show you an example of what one looks like fully done. Here's a good quality one from Jada and Catherine from previous years. And they did all theirs with measurements, okay? So notice they have first data set, they have an initial hypothesis. I predict the correlation between wingspan and height will be positive. They state their sampling method, they use convenience. You know, some nice pictures to pizzazz it up. Nobody wants to look at a boring black and white screen. Their data table, again, copy straight from your Google Sheets, or again, if you hyperlink your data in, that is always taken care of. And you have your scatter plot with the least squares regression line and a y hat equation listed out. And then you can square root your R squared value to find your R value. So R is equal to this and has a positive, moderately strong linear correlation. Okay, so this is what you're going to do for each of your 5 data sets. Okay, again, they did theirs all on measurements of the body in a nice, pretty concise manner. And then make sure at the very end of your project, you are answering the question, which one had the strongest correlation? Okay, so you need to look at your data sets and see which one had the highest R value. And theirs went to height and wingspan. And that's actually a very, very common study in the medical field. So 0.76, which is pretty high for real world data. Okay, so here shows you one example of a good quality completed project. Again, to show you one more example from a previous year. Again, questions could be anything. So here's shoe size versus height. Again, hypothesis, the sampling method, data tables, and your scatter plot with least squares regression line, and your interpretation, i.e. sentence. Okay, this is the part a lot of people forget. Interpret slope, interpret slope. Okay, you have that in your notes. Memorize, that is AP question. Final conclusions. Okay, so they did sports and video games played hours per week. Make sure to specify, okay, all your data should be numerical, but you need to specify, is it minutes, is it hours? If it's height, is it in inches? Specify, otherwise you're gonna have to change that data manually when you get your spreadsheet. Okay, but shows you some good quality examples here. So pizzazz it up. Nobody wants a boring presentation. Again, we will have a day where you will actually present online to each other. So don't make it boring. Have some fun being real world statisticians.